I've got to come over to our magic window now. I feel like Captain Kangaroo with our magic window. And like I explained earlier, did anyone test to make sure this worked? Sure did. Okay, okay. And up on the wall right now is our sponsor for this hour. We have several sponsors throughout the weekend, and that is one of the first one we've actually been able to expose to you, so we want to thank them for being part of the program. Let's hear it. Right now we got to do a little something here.
We're going to exchange mics here.
Okay, okay.
I'll give you one of mine.
Alrighty.
Okay. Okay.
For those of you who don't know, Joanne Powell from TV 13.
Yes, how are you? I just want to let you know this is the first for me. I've never interviewed someone on live television, so this will be really interesting.
See, now the viewers watching have a kind of a little plus here because they can watch this while we're doing it live,
right,
and then they can watch it again later tonight.
To see what we do and how we kind of do this. So first of all, talk to me about what you're doing this for, kind of what's going on to let our viewers know what's happening here.
Okay. Basically, we're here to promote TV 23, for one. We're here to break the Guinness World Record, of course, for the longest continuous live television program with one host and one director. By the time this is done, hopefully we will have had myself here for 36 hours, my director, Melissa Prusi, who the Guinness people, basically the record is a host and a director, Sherry Rawson, my producer, and Katie Ricecamp, one of our crew members. She's running camera. So by the time this is over, we will have had hopefully 4 people here 36 hours, and by the time this is over, a lot of people will know who TV 23 is and what we do.
Now let's talk about what TV 23 does. It's a community television station.
TV 23 is a community access station. We do a lot of local programming. Most of our programming comes from the local area. It's a non-profit organization. Most of our funding comes through contributions from both local businesses and the public. And I say we do a lot with our new remote truck. We do a lot of sporting events. We do festivals, parades. So we're out in the community, and one of the big things is our slogan is kind of on our truck is built by the community.
Okay.
And being community access, you know, we want this record to be the community's record. We don't want this to be our record. We want it to be a community record. We want, when they look up that in the Guinness book, we want it, and it says Wyoming, Michigan, we want them to say, hey, that's our record as Wyoming or Grand Rapids.
Right.
Not Melissa, Sherry, myself.
Hi, Melissa. How are you?
Pretty good so far.
We're going to have to kind of turn this way a little bit so that our camera can get you. Basically, tell me why you're involved with this and what kind of brought this on.
Well, Scott really brought it on, but it just seemed like a really fun idea and something I'd be really interested in doing. I've always read the Guinness record book and always thought, gee, I wonder what I can do to actually get in the book. And this is probably the only opportunity I'll ever have. So.
What did you think when they first said, we're going to do this, 36 hours, can I make it?
At first I really thought I could make it. Then I started thinking about it and changed my mind, but
How's it been for you?
Pretty hectic so far.
Yeah. Tell us what a typical hour is like for you. What's going on behind the scenes?
It's kind of mass confusion because we usually have crews switching back and forth. Nobody's going to be here for 36 hours like we are. So they're switching around a lot. That's a lot of confusion getting everybody back into place. It's been running fairly smoothly other than that, though, so far.
What do you think will keep you going?
Sheer willpower.
Yeah. Now, Scott, what about you? What is going to keep you going in this?
Probably the activity. We've got so much. Everything is pretty tightly scheduled as far as guests. Every half hour, every 15 minutes, we've got guests shuffling in and out. So I think the amount of activity that we're going to have throughout the whole thing is going to be a big plus. It's going to keep us busy and on our toes.
Now, this is kind of a different way to raise money for your station. Why this versus the telethons? It's typical for this type of television.
Well, everybody, I think, is getting a little tired of people asking for money on TV. We've all seen, some of the big telethons, and we've all seen some of the local telethons, and it seems like no matter what time of the year you turn a TV on, somebody is going to be asking for money. And we've tried telethons in the past, and the first couple years we did telethons, they were real effective, and they worked. But then since then, the market's been oversaturated with telethons. So we figured by doing this way, we're not only increasing the awareness of people out there as to what TV23 is that may not have ever known about it before, but we're also, through local businesses that are supporting us with underwriting, we're gaining money too to pay off our new truck, our remote truck. So.
Well, that sounds pretty exciting. I wish you guys a lot of luck.
Well, thank you.
Well, I guess we can. Usually what happens is the photographer will take some various shots and everything, since the basic interview is pretty much over, because I've got the information that I need from you. So what are some of the things that are coming up next? I mean, you have a little bit of a break now. What does the schedule look for you?
Well, hopefully if we can make the connection at 3:45 this afternoon, we've got an interview from Hollywood with Bob Hope.
Oh.
Later this evening, if all goes right, we may have an interview with one of the original Munchkins from The Wizard of Oz.
Okay.
Besides for that, we've got a lot of local people. We've got a lot of the local radio stations and a lot of local personalities, newspaper columnists, etc. here. But it's the volunteers. Everybody down here is a volunteer, with the exception of four and a half. We got a real short guy. With the exception of 4.5 staff people, all the crew are volunteers, and it's the volunteers that are going to make this happen.
Yeah. Do you think you may do this again, or do you have to like wait until it happens to figure out?
No predictions now. I'm sorry.
It's funny. Last night we were doing some of the work on the logos and banners for the underwriters, and we were sitting in one of the rooms down the hall, and we were talking about maybe next year we could reconfirm the record and go 30. I mean, we haven't even gone through this first 36. By midnight tomorrow night, I may never ever want to do anything like this again. But it was kind of ironic that last night we were already talking about 37
Next
hours
year,
next year.
right.
So,
I said that while I was out of the room.
yeah, Melissa had gone home to catch a few winks of sleep, but who knows what may happen.
Oh, my break is over. I have to go. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Well, whenever you get ready to go for your next guest, who is coming up next?
Ruth Butler. Is Ruth here?
Yes.
Okay, Ruth Butler from the Grand Rapids Press will be here now.
Shall I talk here until she comes? Are we
is
ready
she
for
ready
her?
or?
I don't know. We'll find out.
Okay.
How long have you been at Channel 13?
Well, I've been there for almost 4 years. May 6th will be my 4th year anniversary.
May 6th. So you're coming up on.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. Coming to Grand Rapids was kind of an interesting move for me. I was working at an ABC affiliate station in Huntsville, Alabama before I came up here, so it was like a major change. My first winter was like, oh my goodness, the
Climate,
snow.
yeah.
But it was fun. I've gotten into winter sports and everything, so I've really enjoyed being here in Grand Rapids.
If you weren't working in Grand Rapids, would you still be here? I mean,
I came here
Do the-
primarily for employment, yeah.
Okay, but the climate, now that you've kind of become acclimated to the
Yeah.
climate, do you still like it, or?
Yeah, I do. Well, I've taken up cross-country skiing, downhill skiing, so those things kind of take you through the winter months. And, of course, I love the summer sports, the Lake Michigan, swimming, those type of things. So hiking.
It's funny talking to a lot of people that have come to Grand Rapids from, or even Western Michigan, from outside areas, like talking to Red Noise earlier, and most people are really impressed with the lake.
Yeah.
Because it's probably the only place that you can go, with the exception of ocean.
Yeah.
The ocean, the states that are bordering on the
Yeah.
ocean, where you can have a lake that size.
Well, I grew up in California, which is around the ocean, but the thing I like about Lake Michigan is the water's not salty.
That's right, fresh
you get
water.
the feeling of being in the ocean, like when you go swimming, it doesn't burn your eyes and stuff like that. So that's a nice aspect of being in Michigan, and it kind of gives you the feeling of being on the coast and everything too.
And the winters give us something to look forward to.
Yeah, you kind of all 4 seasons, something that you don't quite get in California. The palm trees don't turn colors and stuff in the fall. You don't have the fall colors like you do here. That was something that I learned was really spectacular, was the color towards everybody makes such a big deal out of it. And it is beautiful, very beautiful, the colors and stuff that you see. The farther north you go, it seems like they're real brilliant until they finally come here. It's like, I could talk Europe all night, but I've got to go back and do this story. Oh yeah, how do you eat?
We've got the.
Besides these cookies here.
What's the official title, David? The American Culinary.
Oh, American Culinary Federation.
The American.
Southwest chapter.
The Southwest chapter of the American.
Culinary.
The Southwest
Okay.
chapter of the American Culinary Federation is feeding us every 4 hours. They're
Would
coming
you
in.
eat on the air?
Yeah, we've got a kitchen set over in the other part of the
Okay.
building, and we will actually be preparing and cooking on the air.
Oh, that's right, because they were mentioning to me about they're going to have the meals, so you'll just sit there and
We'll
eat
just
them.
sit there and eat them,
Okay.
and snitch while we're making them. We've also got. Help yourself if you're hungry.
Okay.
We've got some of the local businesses that are supplying us with.
Yeah, I
with
noticed
food
the
and
cookies
juices
and donuts around.
Yeah, we're going to be well fed. We should have weighed in beforehand and weighed in after this is over because we're going to be eating well this weekend.
Okay.
Is there any relation between the ant farm and the...
Yeah, I was looking at the ant farm.
No, actually, it was just bad placement.
What is with the ant
The
farm?
ant farm, we wanted something that would show improvement over the 36 hours. We wanted something
yeah,
that would
so you can
show
see what they've done.
start to finish, right? So that's
Oh.
why we got the ant farm, was to show the improvement that they're doing.
As long as no one knocks it over.
Or as long as I remember to put the lid. When we first introduced the ants into the farm, I forgot to put the lid back on. And,
Oh, no, they were crawling up.
Well, fortunately, I noticed before they got too active. But
Okay. Now, what type of ants are these? They look like
California
red ants?
ants. I have no
okay.
idea.
They look red, so you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
That's pretty exciting.
But, well, thanks for coming down, Joanne.
Yeah.
We're gonna get our next guest in here. And
Okay, well, let's take your mic
Okay.
off, and I'll take. We have to take this
we'll
with
collect
us.
collect our mics here.
And I'll leave this one here.
Alrighty.
It's been real.
Thanks, Joanne. Okay, now we're gonna do some shuffling here. Once again, we want to thank Old Kent for underwriting this hour. Our next guest that we've got coming in is from the Grand Rapids Press, Ruth Butler, and once again, we've got some John Douglas coming up after Ruth. This is going to be like the Grand Rapids Press Hour. And once again, you're watching us on... Actually, Melissa, are you there?
I am now.
Did we get confirmation as to whether we're on GRTV?
Yes, we are.
We are on GRTV.
Hello, Grand Rapids.
That's right. Hello, Grand Rapids. If you're watching us now, you're watching us on both WCET, I've got it, Melissa, in Granville and Jenison, TV 23 here in Wyoming. We're coming live from the Wyoming Community Television Center. And you're watching us on J23 GRTV in Grand Rapids. So now I'll walk over here again. We're into hour 3. And hello, Ruth.
Hi, Steph.
Thanks for joining us.
Great to be here. The cookies smell wonderful.
Have you had any yet?
Not yet, not yet. And I feel right at home at the ant farm. We have one at the office now.
Yeah, Tom. Did Tom get his
Rademacher.
ants?
He did, except yours are a lot more alive. Many of his are quite dead. And as I look at this is the way an ant farm is really supposed to look. They're starting to build tunnels at the office, but a lot of them are just, as soon as they got in the little whatever that's called, they died. They look like little dead raisins. So.
Well, we had talked to Tom when we originally came up with the idea for this, and he had a problem getting his ants because they were waiting for warmer weather.
Yeah.
'Cause otherwise, I guess the ants don't fare real well in
In
cold
the
weather
mail.
travel.
Yeah. Except they're red. Does that mean
Especially
they'll
when
kill
they
you?
put those postage cancellation
Yeah,
things
that
on.
hurts them. It does hurt them. I brought you a present, each of you, Murphy Brown pencils.
Oh, okay.
Authentic Murphy Brown pencils. If you've seen the show, which is great, that's the only addiction she still has.
Is pencils?
Eating pencils.
Eating pencils?
Yeah. She's given up drinking and smoking, and she went to the Betty Ford Clinic and everything on the show. So
They don't have anything as far as Betty Ford for helping with pencils.
I guess not, but I figured maybe 2 o'clock tomorrow morning,
It's
you
better
might be
than
chomping on
biting
them.
nails, I
Sure,
guess.
sure. In between the chef's visits and stuff.
Yeah, if we've got any room for any more food
Yeah.
between the chefs.
Yeah.
You've worked at the press now for
10
years.
long years.
Long years.
Long years. Fulfilling, but crazy. I started there as a sports writer. I was teaching high school English and started working in the sports department part-time and started doing a few games and stuff. And this opening came, and I was still teaching. I was teaching at Catholic Central at the time. And the sports editor, Bob Becker, said, there's this opening, and I'm not saying that you're going to get this opening, but it's here, and I have this assignment for you. And if you do well on this assignment, we might consider you for this job. And the assignment was every year the Detroit Pistons basketball team would come to Grand Rapids and do an exhibition game at Calvin College. And about 3 months before this, the Supreme Court in New York State had said that professional locker rooms should be accessible to sports writers no matter what their gender. So this was a big moment. Women could now go into the locker rooms. And so he said, okay, we're going to do a first-person test case at Calvin College, and you will go into the Pistons locker room after the game and do some interviews and see what it's like to be a woman in the locker room. And so, of course, I was terrified of that. But I thought, well, I would like to work at the press, so I'll try it. And I can't even remember a thing about the game itself. I sat there and just was nervous and wondering what they were going to do. And the people at Calvin were not real thrilled about this either. They thought it was
A little
perhaps,
risque.
yeah. And for basketball, you don't want anything risque. But anyway, that's what I did. I went into the locker room after. What they do is give the athletes like a 10-minute warning. I followed the big tub of beer and pop that was going, and they said, "Woman coming in 10 minutes," and so everybody should be dressed appropriately. And most of them were. A couple of them were not. In fact, one very tall gentleman that I had to walk right past was still in the process of...
I'm glad you worded it the way you worded it.
Thank you. I chose my words carefully. He was in the transition process from uniform to street clothes, and didn't seem to really be aware that I was there. And from what I heard later, he got a lot of teasing on the team bus going back to Detroit. But I went in and did an interview, and I actually was able to type the story and do it okay and do a first person about what it was like, and then I was hired.
How were the players? How did they react to?
They were fine. They were really used to it because the Detroit locker rooms had been open always anyhow, and there were some sportscasters in Detroit who were female, and so they were real used to it. It wasn't a big thing to them at all. The Calvin management was more nervous about it than anything. They thought it was inappropriate. There were some teams like the Detroit Lions have never let women in. I got locked in an interview room one time at the Silverdome because they had locked the locker room. All the men had gone in, all the male sports writers had gone in, and they had locked the access back to the Silverdome, and I was in this hallway with no way to get out, waiting for Billy Sims to come out of the locker room, getting very angry, composing a letter to Pete Rozelle in my head as I was standing there. And so the Lions were not as comfortable with it, but everybody else was okay. So the Pistons were fine, and it got me a job and got me out of teaching.
Have the Lions since changed that?
I don't think so. I haven't been doing sports now for about 5 years, so I really don't know. I don't think they have. I think what they decided finally to do was have an interview room, and they would bring players out. And that works real well in theory, but not always in practice, because by then all the men have already talked to them. It's very hard to interview, to be like the third person to interview somebody, because all the fresh stuff is gone, and they start regurgitating the same quotes again. And so I did the Lions every Thanksgiving for about 4 years, and I never was able, it isn't that I wanted to go in, I just wanted access to people. And so I don't think they're very comfortable with it. They just as soon not have women around anyway, I mean, they think we're the ones who are bringing them coffee, for halftime, and they just don't want it. So a lot of women are leaving sports for that reason.
So you went from sports to entertainment.
Yeah, in fact, while I was in sports, I was doing, I was a copy editor doing layout. I was deciding what pictures would go on the sports page and that kind of stuff. And I was getting itchy to write some more, and so I started doing program reviews about 6 years ago. And so I would do that, watch shows and do reviews of them, and then be a copy editor in sports. And I did that simultaneously for about 2.5 years, and then went over to entertainment full time, and now do the local beat, and I do the whole thing, radio, all of it. And I've done that now for about 4 years. And so that's really, it's been very enjoyable. I've been doing the reviews a lot longer. This upcoming will be my, I think, 6th fall season to preview. And that seems like a long time to me. I mean, I was doing this before Cosby was even on the air, and now he's an institution. But that's the fun part of it.
Of the two departments, do you like the entertainment?
Oh yeah, I got sick of sports. I mean, it was fun. I did everything. I did Notre Dame football, which is almost being at the left hand of God in some people's minds. And I'd done Michigan football. I did a lot of high school sports, a lot of local college, some pro, and I had done a lot of different things too, track, baseball, wrestling. Got an award for writing about wrestling, and I had no knowledge of it at all before I started it. So I had done all of it, and I was getting to the point where, oh, here's another football season. Who's going to be the running back this year? And I got tired of it. And in fact, I look back at some of the guys who are still doing that, who were there when I was there, and I sort of think maybe they just don't want to grow up. I mean, I think it was time for me to put the toys away and do something really meaningful like television. I mean, it was so. I just got bored.
Become the host of Wheel of Fortune.
Sure, yeah. So it was just time to move on, time to do something fresh. It was all right, but I just got tired of the same.
Do you still keep up with the sports now that
sure.
you're not in that department?
Yeah, oh yeah, I do. I've always been a sports fan. I grew up in Detroit, and always watched the Red Wings and the Pistons, and not very much because then they were pretty crummy, but we watched them a lot. And the Lions, I would go to Lions games all the time. I've always been a Tiger fan. I'm just so excited. We heard Ernie Harwell's voice on the radio for the first time since last fall, just a couple weeks ago, and it was, you know, it was like taking a drink of water in the desert. It was wonderful. So I'm real anxious for baseball season to start. So I do keep up on sports, and real disturbed about Pete Rose being involved in this scandal, although I've never liked him, but I think it's bad for baseball. But I don't watch every single game like I used to because I don't have to, but now I have to watch every single TV show instead. So I still like it though. And it's nice now to be able to go to a sporting event and enjoy it instead of only having to take notes and pay attention. So that's different.
When the new fall season comes out, you mentioned that a couple minutes ago, and you have to review the new shows. How does that whole process come about? Do you have to go to like the network affiliates here to watch it? And then
well, the affiliates are real good about, the way that works is the networks, either in New York or California, will satellite feeds of the programs to the local affiliates who will then tape it. Most of them will pick that up for me on half-inch tape, which is the kind of tape people have in their homes. And I can just watch them at my leisure. Those things start coming usually in June. And so I spend the whole summer watching previews of shows. Usually there are about 23 to 25 new shows. With the exception of Channel 3 in Kalamazoo, I have to go down there and watch. Just logistically, it doesn't work. But so I spend the summer watching programs, and still they dribble in all through the fall too. And then we do one big promotion of it.
when do they start coming in?
By the end of June, they usually have all the national press get together in California at the end of June or beginning of July, and that's why they're there for the fall season to preview and interview stars and things. And so most of the programs are ready by then, 3/4 of them. And that's when they'll start feeding them to the affiliates, who are also very eager to look at them so that they can sell the time. So late June, beginning of July, and it'll get real heavy the beginning of August. And then we usually do a preview of the season right around Labor Day. And I'm still watching things, you know, right up to the end, because there are some shows that are still in production until the last minute. War and Remembrance was like that just for the miniseries itself. They weren't even finished, you know, maybe a week before. It took us a long time to get all the parts. So we'll watch it that way.
Having seen all these shows and the ones that have become hits and the ones that haven't, is there kind of a set formula that you can see beginning as far as a hit show or a show that's going to be a real stinker?
It's real hard to tell. I've asked people that, you know, well, when you see something that's just abysmal, really awful, and you think, why didn't they? I mean, I know it's awful. Why didn't they know it was awful? They just don't know what the formula is. And they'll say, if I knew that, you know, I'd be a multimillionaire, because it's hard to know. When you look at a half-hour sitcom, you can almost get that pattern, though. I mean, it's like build-up line, joke line, build-up line, build-up line, joke. And if the jokes are good, you won't notice it as much. If they're real tired and tedious, then it does become a formula. For half-hour shows, it's a lot more identifiable because everything will build up. And I always determine what's going on in a show by what time it is. If you watch an 8 o'clock show, you know, by 8:10, it's all the preliminary stuff. By about 8:18, the crisis hits, and then it all winds up about 8:25, and then we're all finished. With a dramatic show or an hour program, it's real hard to know. A show this year called Almost Grown on CBS was about this couple, tracing a couple's lives through about 3 different decades, from high school to college to being married, and now they're getting a divorce. And some people raved about it, thought it was wonderful. It's now been canceled. I hated it from the beginning, but other critics who've been watching TV as long or longer than I have really liked it. So it's very hard. It's very subjective. It's real hard to say. There's a new show out now called Men on ABC, and what they're trying to do is get kind of a Cagney and Lacey, that female bonding kind of a show for men, kind of a 30-something but all male. And I saw the first episode last week, and you know, they did everything. They played poker, they smoked cigars, they played basketball, they drank beer together. I don't know what's going to be left. I mean, what else do men do? It just seemed very stereotypical.
Do you find that like the pilots for those programs are the best, and then they kind of trickle down from there?
For a lot of shows, that's true, because they shoot their whole wide. You know, they've had 6 months to do the pilot, then they have 2 weeks to do the second episode. So by the second and third episodes, you really have a good feel for what the show's going to be like. It's hard when you're doing a fall preview, though, because you only get the first episode. TV Guide, I think, watches 5 or 6 episodes before they even review a show. I just don't have that kind of time, and most of us don't. But there are shows that you know from the very beginning. Cosby's pilot I think I watched 5 times because it was hilarious.
Do you keep some of these in your personal collection then?
No, well, no, I don't, because the tapes belong to the
Oh,
station,
okay.
unless I tape them at home. But they'll loan me the tapes, and we reuse the cassettes. But every time somebody would come over to my house, because I was doing it at home at the time, I'd say, "You've got to see this show. It's really funny." And we'd sit and I'd laugh out loud, and that show has really held up really, I think, for the first 2 years. I don't laugh at it anymore.
Yeah.
But Murphy Brown was another show. That's why you've got the pencils. I really liked that show. The pilot was funny, and it's been funny since.
Yeah, it's stayed.
Yeah,
pretty
it
much.
has. But there are some shows that don't. Golden Girls was real hilarious for the first 3 years. In the last 2 years, the writers have gotten, I think, tired or
Yeah.
burnt out.
A
Now they
lot-
just talk about sex.
A lot of the shows, I am so sick of seeing TV families having babies.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen it on
Growing
Pains. We've
Yeah.
seen it on Family Ties. And now even on
Cosby.
Elf, they're having a baby.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah,
I'm behind.
last I
didn't
heard
know.
is she was going to have a baby. I mean, it's just
Now,
it's
Elf
almost like
wasn't involved in this in any way, was he?
not to my
Oh,
knowledge.
right.
But I mean, it's almost like the kiss of death. I mean, you have a kid, and next season or 2 seasons afterwards, it's over. But do you think they interject that just to kind of give it new blood?
Oh, sure.
to
Like
keep
in
it going?
Family Ties, well, they only have so many characters, and they need another character maybe, or another kind of situation. When Family Ties had the baby, Meredith Baxter Burney was pregnant, so this was a good time to introduce a new character. And she had the baby at the end of one season, and when the next season started, the kid was, I think, 3 years old
Yeah,
and
he
in
aged real
preschool,
quickly.
because there are no, once the baby's there, I mean, there's always the I'm having the baby episode, and then once the baby's there, there's nothing to do with it. It's like on soap operas. Somebody has a baby, and 2 years later, he comes down the stairs and he's a teenager and has just gotten somebody pregnant. I mean, they just don't have any.
And they're pregnant for about 15 months.
Oh yeah, and then the baby disappears, and because there's no storyline for a 1-year-old, they just aren't cute to talk and do lines. So they just have to do it for for new blood, new energy for the storylines.
What has been the nation's most popular television show lately?
Cosby,
Cosby
Cosby,
still
yes,
brings him in, huh?
still Cosby. It's going. He's being dethroned, I think, by Roseanne. Roseanne a couple weeks ago was the #1 show in the country for that week, and he was, I think, second overall. I did bring my listing of overall. Cosby, from the beginning of this season to the middle of March, is still the #1 show. Roseanne, though, is the second, #2. She's #2, and only a couple ratings points behind him. It's a new show, a new person, a different situation.
storylines.
I've had people say they're sick of Cosby because the house is so clean. Their kids are always really well dressed.
Roseanne's quite
Everybody's
the opposite.
clean. I know. So now here's Roseanne. Everything's dirty. The kids are slobs. They don't talk with proper grammar. I mean, it's the opposite of Cosby almost. And so that one's really, it's got a lot of fire too. Cosby's on the way out. I mean, he might do it another year, but
Then you
I
think
mean,
it's
the
over.
man's been on for 5
Yeah,
years,
yeah.
and he deserves. I mean, I think it would be a well-deserved time off. I think he's coming back next year, but I'd be surprised if it would be after that.
Starting to get real weak.
And like I said, I'm not laughing anymore. But for people who want to watch a whole, quote unquote, wholesome show, all the family can sit down and watch, that's good. Because you know that nobody's going to use profanity. There aren't going to be any embarrassing situations, things that make people at home uncomfortable. We just did a survey a month ago of our readers, asking them what shows they liked and didn't like. And Cosby was by far the favorite. The one that was by far the least favorite was kind of a surprise to me, and that was Golden Girls. And people really found that offensive because they don't like senior citizens talking about sexual kinds of things.
It's not normal.
It's not, no. By that time, they shouldn't be, talking about that kind of stuff, was the kind of feeling I got from people. And they're both very popular shows. Golden Girls, if I check my list, is 6th overall for the season. It's a very popular show. Almost anything on NBC is doing really well right now. So, but they didn't like it. Our local people don't like it. They want something more wholesome, except they love A Current Affair. They don't say they love it, but they watch it. It's one of the best, this market is one of the best markets nationwide for that show.
All the ratings are controlled by the Nielsen ratings.
And Arbitron.
And Arbitron. Do they break down Arbitron and Nielsen ratings as far as age and sex of the viewers
sure.
like they do with radio?
Exactly the same thing. They call it demographics. And of course, the demographic everybody wants is people ages 25 to 49 or 25 to 54, and most especially women of those ages, because they think that women are the ones who are spending all the household money. I don't know if that's true, but that's what advertisers believe. And so so shows that are really appealing to that group will last a lot longer. St. Elsewhere, which was one of my favorites, was on for 5 years, never did very well in the ratings at all. It was always like at 40s and 50s, from number one down. But it was on and it was successful because it appealed to that demographic, and advertisers were satisfied with that. So that was enough for them.
How do you think Fox is going to fare competing
Fox,
against the other networks?
Oh, Fox is having a whale of a time on Sunday nights. They've had their Sunday schedule on for 2 years now, and they added about a year ago, I think now, America's Most Wanted, which has really helped them. That's on at 8 o'clock. It's really propelled them to ratings that are now comparable to network shows. The first year or so, they were just off the mark, but now some of those Sunday night shows are beating network shows, and they're not even being seen by nearly the number of people because there aren't as many affiliates as there are for network. And of course, the latest flap about Married with Children, people who all of a sudden found that show was on and didn't like it, they found it offensive for a number of reasons. Now Married with Children's numbers are skyrocketing. They're beating, they're like the second highest rated show in their time period for a Sunday night. They're beating some of Murder, She Wrote's numbers, and that's a very popular show for CBS. So that's really helping them a lot. All this, everybody, as soon as
It's
you
almost
start,
having a negative effect from what the people wanted.
People are writing about it, people are talking about it, and they're saying, I'm so disgusted. And now people are saying, well, gee,
let's see what's so
disgusting.
As long as the neighbors aren't watching, let's pull the curtains.
Yeah, no one will know, but we'll watch and see what's so horrible. And it's getting a lot more fans now. It's getting a lot of people who are upset too, but they're getting a lot of fans now. So they're doing really well on Sundays with Gary Shandling. Jump Street is very popular, especially with younger audiences. And as the night goes on, it's not doing very well, but they're supposed to add Monday night programming. They're going to start showing movies once a month, starting in May, I think, and then in the fall, in September, they're going to add a third night of programming. If they keep doing it like that, they should be all right. Saturday night was absolutely horrible for them until they started doing some reality programming. Cops is now on, been very highly acclaimed, and so they've got 2 fairly solid nights. So I think they're going to be all right if they do it still slowly. The first raft of stuff they did for Saturday, I don't think there's a thing on that started out on Saturday now, but I think they're going to do okay.
How many, are the Nielsen families pretty much controlled as for each city? I mean, does Grand Rapids have a constant amount of Nielsen people every week?
Well, we're not a marketed,
aren't we at all?
We are not a metered market. Detroit, the top, I don't know how deep it goes, if it's the top 20. Detroit and Chicago are metered markets. They will get overnight ratings. We only get rated 4 times a year, and those are during sweeps. We just got one in February, and that means that people in this market are doing diaries, paper. They're checking things out. In the major markets, people are using equipment. They're using machinery. They log in like on a computer and say, here I am, I'm this old, I'm watching this show. Oops, I'm going to the bathroom now, I'm leaving the room, and so they have to undo it all. And but those are just in the major markets. So we don't have. There'll be Nielsen families probably for this market, but not meters, and they're really only feeding national numbers. They're not really doing the local.
Real quickly, let's talk about soap operas.
Yeah.
How do soap operas do compared to nighttime TV?
They do very well. They don't have the numbers that nighttime TV has, but they are very devoted. People, the thing that really told me how soap operas do is when the Challenger exploded, it's like over 2 years ago, and it had happened, I think, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, or I don't remember, it was in the afternoon, then 1 o'clock maybe, and people were so upset that they were doing coverage of the Challenger explosion where these people lost lives, and they were missing their soap operas, that local stations were absolutely flooded with calls. Where's my soap opera? Anytime they're preempted, people go berserk. The funny thing that's different between soaps and primetime is that NBC owns primetime. I mean, their shows are just really good in primetime. In daytime, they're horrible. NBC is by far the third-rated network for soaps. I think ABC leads. General Hospital and All My Children are real popular. Young and Restless is real popular on CBS. So whatever goes on in prime time isn't necessarily indicative of network success during the day. And they're really trying to pick up audience. I think they have a lot of people watch, a lot of devoted people.
You were, real quickly, we're running out of time. You were on All My Children, right?
Yeah, a year ago.
Was that a fun experience?
It was hilarious. It was great. They were very charming. They let me spend well, I was there for the whole day because I had to go through rehearsals and things. They were just wonderful. They couldn't have been nicer to me. And it was real interesting to see them behind the scenes going from scene to scene to scene, rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. Now we're taping and now it's over and we're finished. And, you know, for a 12-hour day, they did an episode, and it really opened my eyes to the kind of work they do. It was very clear to me who there was really a performer and who was just beautiful. And
do you find it kind of destroys the illusion when you actually see it and go back to watch it?
It did in a sense, because a lot of the sets, well, like this set is gigantic. You know, it's very, the way it looks on television is very big. Some of the sets on TV, on the soaps, look very massive, and when you actually stand in them, you know, there's the couch, and then, you know, then that's the end. And so that was very peculiar to me. It was not difficult for me to go back and watch the people again, except I got to see them without makeup. And they look just as horrible as most of the people I know look in the morning. And that made me feel wonderful. I saw them in rollers, everybody except Erica Kane. I didn't see her I saw her in rollers, but she was made up the whole time. And they looked just like ordinary folks, and that was nice. That made me feel good.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming down, Ruth.
Thank you.
I want to
Good
thank you
luck.
for being here. Well, thank you.
Hope it
And
goes.
We're going to do some quick shuffling here.
Good.
Oh, we're going to do it over here? Yep. Okay. Next guest is Mr. John Douglas from the Grand Rapids Press. Did you guys carpool down here today, or did you?
We wanted to do the show together.
Well, you should have said something.
Yeah, but apparently not to the right people.
Evidently not.
Just to each other.
They want you to move in a little bit.
All right.
Up and over the carpet. There we go. Good. Looking which way? Look this way. I guess we're going to do interviews this way.
There you go.
Okay, now we're set. You are a movie critic and editorial writer for the...
Not exactly editorial, like a column on the editorial page. So it's a little different. I don't have anything to do with the editorials.
Okay.
No, nor do I always agree with them.
You're kind of controversial in yourself with some of the articles you write.
Oh, shucks, maybe. Yeah.
First of all, I want to... For a long time, I voiced an opinion about the Little Drummer Boy. And for a long time, I thought I was the only person that hated that
Oh, you
song.
hate it too?
I hate it too. And I'm glad to meet somebody that agrees that any song with 3 lines with lyrics that's filled with pa-rum-pa-bum-bum should never be played.
And that's only, you know, the next worst one, of course, is 12 Days of Christmas. Yeah.
You're right, you're right. The Academy Awards the other night. Did you agree with the outcome of them, or were some of the movies that won some of your least favorite movies?
Well, first of all, I didn't see it. I missed it. But the ones that I had picked, or the ones that I thought would win, somebody told me, and I haven't had a chance to verify yet, that I got 10 right.
Oh, really?
And that was 10 in our contest out of 16. But, you know, I don't know. A film like Working Girlfriend, it's a good movie, but I saw better movies last year than that. Bird, for instance, but you only got 1 nomination for best sound, and it did win. I thought it was a heck of a lot better film than Working Girl. Certainly better than Gorillas in the Mist. And I did not see Dangerous Liaisons. But this is their club, and they can do with it what they want. You know, so that's the way I look at it. You know, I have my choice. First of all, I don't believe in pitting one work of art against another. I don't know what you gain from that. And so trying to pick one movie out over another, it doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm bored by that whole aspect of it. I think there's things that pleased me last year, things that didn't. And that's as far as it goes.
What was probably the movie that pleased you the most last year?
I have a hard time saying because I can't remember exactly what I saw last year.
You see so many.
Well, I see probably 350 movies California, and I cannot exactly tell you what came out last year and what I saw the year before. But I thought that Unbearable Lightness of Being was quite nice. I see a lot of good movies on video now that don't show up in the theater, and I don't understand why. For instance, a lot of great Australian films never come to the theater, and I saw an epic, which I thought was wonderful, called The Light Horseman. There's a World War I story, and it was terrific, and better than a lot of things that I saw.
Do you find when a movie goes on to video cassette that it loses a lot?
Oh, sure. So, most of them do. I suspect that if you had a, some film, and I don't know if you remember the little film Marty with Ernest Borgnine, won Academy Award for him way back when. That probably would work on TV. In fact, it was a TV show, or a live TV show originally that was made into a movie. Yeah, I think they all do. I think that it has a negative effect. Not only the big screen, but now I think with the better sound systems. If you have really good sound, it adds a lot. And if you're sitting there listening with a 25-cent speaker in your home, that makes a difference. So
I'm always surprised too at the way the drive-ins. For a while, drive-ins were real popular, and once again, you're listening through the little, $2.50 transistor like radio-like speaker. And I was always surprised at the number of people that would go to a drive-in and watch a movie on.
Well, I think that VCRs are better than drive-ins, and I think that they're beating them to death. We have no more drive-ins in town; they're gone. And I suspect VCRs what did it. I think that serious moviegoers who went to the drive-ins were those who were with young kids who couldn't afford babysitters, and so now they can.
Kids in the
then
back
they could stay home and watch the movie under better conditions. The drive-in was really an abysmal place to watch a movie.
Yeah.
And partly because of the sound, or if you're there and the fog rolls in, or it starts to rain, or
And they always start them before it's
they start them when
dark,
the only thing you see are people's teeth.
Do you think VCRs are hurting or helping the movie industry?
Oh, helping it. I mean, it's a whole new market. I mean, films that would not ever see the light of day are showing up on video, and these are good movies and bad movies. The ones that don't come to the theater are either really good specialized films that mass markets are not going to enjoy, or there's some terrible, awful thing that nobody would like, and those are the kinds that go straight to video. And if you pick the right one, you can see really nice films that would have had no chance before to be seen. So it's been a help. Plus,